words may become a barrier. And in addition, in order to have the decent technologies in the company, it costs a lot. So not many companies, invest in a decent good technology system. This one already, perception, I think someone have mentioned the conscious barrier. I don't know is there any, but anyways, since the company getting more and more globalized, so any large office may have the people coming from several parts of the world. So different cultures will have a different meaning for several basic value of society. So it can include, actually someone mentioned soft barriers in the cultural barrier. That is dressing, clothes, religions, food, drink, pets, and so on. Even the value. Attitude, I think some also measures genders. Interesting that men and women are different. However, they always stay together. That's why a lot of conflicts in the communications as well. Now, women, you see, you can easily observe that the women talk a lot. And in terms of talking, they talk better than men. They talk faster. They talk more than men. So here, according to the statistic, you will see the women talk more than 3 times compared to men. And that is not only in terms of number of words speaking per day, but the way men perceive things and processing in their head is different. Therefore, it leads to what they speak it out is different with the women. The women, they talk just for sharing the information, for talking, and they are mixed between the logics and emotions together. And the men, they processing a lot of thinking inside. But they don't want to share what is the processing inside their brain. What they share is the final decision. So for men, normally when they speak it out, they speak what is the decisions, what is their decisions, not discussing. They don't like discussing. They like making conclusions. And modern message, a lot of message complicated overload message also. So see, look at the examples, and then you can see that the difference only one word, but it makes totally difference. Make the first one is the muddled one, and the second one is a clear one. By just replacing one word difference. Wrong choice of medium. I think, is there any group touching it? But this one is quite clear. So the message is there, but in order to increase the effective of the communications, you need to select appropriate channel to convey the message. Right. This one is well. Okay. So let's move to the planning of communication. Developing a communications plan can have focus your message and reach your target audience. And a plans can also influence the efficiencies and simplicities of your communications method. So in this sub-contents, we will look at what a communications plan entails and how, when to create one, and how to use the communications plan to raise, to transmit the informations to the audience. So here, different model, they can come up with different communication plan process. The difference is that they split several steps here, and some will put it together. But here I introduce to you 5 steps of communications process plan. The first is to identify the purpose of your communications. What you want to transmit the purpose, why you are doing it. And after you identify the purpose of the goal of the communications, you identify your audience. Who will be your audience? How many people? Where are they? Are they concentrated in one department or they spread out in many departments? Are they inside the company or outside? What are they? Where are they? Yeah? Your audience. And plan the design your message. You know, how are you going to structure the message? What should be say first? And what should be a second, and so on. And the fourth one will be you select the communications medium. Should I write it combined with making a phone call, or should I have the informal meeting before I have the formal one? Yeah. And finally, once you execute the communications, yeah, you need to assess the effectiveness of that communication. It is a part of the reflections for the executing communication. Now, the subsequent slide will introduce you details of each step, depending. This is identify the purpose or goal of the communications. Of course, depend on your situation. So your purpose will be different. But if you try to recall the definitions of the communications process, the holistic communication definitions, they will divide it into three kinds of purpose. The first is to inform. The second is to negotiate. And the third one is to recreate. Yeah, last time we have discussed this. Or you can apply another morals, to set up the goals. Whether you are new employee here, so you would like to know, you would like to develop a relationships with your colleagues, in the company. So the purpose of this communication is to, to gain the relationships with them, to let them know that you are here recently joining the company, to inform them, to make them understanding in details, or to convince them that your solution is a good solution among proposed solution, and to ask them to change the behavior. So it depends on situation, and you can come up with the different goals. Identify your audience, or the recipients. So who are you trying to reach? Whether your supervisor or subordinates or peer, whether they are inside the company or they are the customer or they are the suppliers. Are they? And for different groups, you may need to design different plans, different message for different groups. For the experienced one, you tend to make it short. For the junior ones, you may make it longer, more explanation. Yeah. And be aware that different channels and more methods will reach, it may require, to reach different groups. And study them a little bit, study them before you communicate with them. Study in terms of their demographic, everything related to demographic, like age, like genders, like religions, and so on. Yeah? Everything related to their demographic. Geography, so where did they come from? How about how they have the problem with ear, they have the problem with speech, or do they have the problem with the blood pressures? Is are they easy to lose a tempers, or so on? Employment, what is their positions? Whether I meet the correct persons for these issues. Creating message. Once you are clear with the audience, now it's time for you to create the message. In order creating the message, you would consider the content, the moods, the language, and design. For the contents, you should craft your message with audience in mind. Plan the contents. What should be first, second, and third. And try to make it effective. For the mood, you need to think, strategize. Think what emotions you want appeals to. What emotion you want to appeal to. Okay. So, there will be different motions. Some of the group discussing is you can use negative or you can use positive. They are both, somewhat effective. However, mhm, however, if we the positive thing usually will reach more people than the evoking, negative feeling. Yeah. So, so bear in mind that things when you decide. Language. In the language, there will be two aspects of the language. One is actual language, like we are going to speak in Vietnamese, in English, in Korean, in Spanish, in which language? You agree the language speak. Mm? And the other is the styles of language that you use. Whether you're going to use a formal or informal, simple or complex, and so on. So that is English. Design actually you make decisions on the channels of communication. What's your intended audience read? Usually read, usually listen to, watch, or engage to. So when you put the information, you should put in the channels that where they feel comfortable and get acquaintance with that channel. And selecting the channels. And finally, the evaluations. You select, the channels. How are you going to communicate with them? Verbal, non-verbals, formal, informal, one-way, two-way, and specific communications channels like emails, direct call. You send them a note, messengers, or so on. So once you're clear with the plan, it's time for you to execute it. So execute is not showing yet. You do it. Yeah, you implement it. So when you implement it, when the implementation's done, you need to sit back to reflect how well you've done it. And in the future, if you do something similar, where it can be improved, where should you improve? Okay. So such kinds of things we call evaluation. So that is a complex process for the communications planning, starting from the identity goes to the evaluation. Right. Questions? Yeah, you have the questions so far. Am I not too fast? Now the third one is the communications and technology. Now I copy some of the emerging technologies, not all, I think it's less than 1/4 of the available technologies. Because just not enough space. You can easily identify these technologies, available technologies for communication, like a web-based meeting, like a voice technologies, like the Internet of Things, social network, and so on. So many. They are all contributing to the effective communications in an organization. And you see that you may easily find that your many technologies might use in your personal life, from Facebook to Twitter's video games, are now used in business. Where the young people, where the customer are, we need to identify it and be closer to the customer. However, the benefits of technologies are not, automatics. Yeah, of course. the communicate effectively, you need to keep the technologies in perspective. You need to put in loop. You need to observe them. What are the available technology? You don't have to be the expert, but you need to know what is available technologies nowadays. And you use the technological tool productively, and against the information loss, and disengage from the device to communicate in person. Not only communicate via technology like this one. Sometimes it is very convenient. You make a phone call, you sit at home with the cold weather, you easily can communicate with your relative by using this thing. However, sometimes you need to disengage from the device frequently to communicate in person. Visit the person. This content is strongly related to your group assignment. The group assignment we call group project, research projects. So immediately after today, I encourage all the group start to search for the technologies that they want to deepen in the group assignment. Select at least select maximum two. I don't suggest you select more than that, and demonstrate how effective, how helpful the technology is in improving the effectiveness of the communication. Okay, and the requirement is that you need 5 words, 4 the cited materials, for referencing materials. And I suggest you to go to the academic search and search for the publications, not books. Looking for the publication where the latest knowledge is there. They are discussing about the latest technology. Books already are of date. So in communications, when we use technologies, we should bear in mind that remember that technology is just an aid to the communication, not a replacement for it. Cannot replace the person's 100%. And technologies can't think, but you can think. Even they develop to transfer knowledge of the human being into technologies like artificial intelligence. However, that knowledge coming from the human being, and he should be updated. And so make up for a lack of essential skills or ensure the communications really happen. They need a person, not only the technology. So here, as the managers, as the employee, you need to keep all available technologies in your loop. You don't have to become an expert to use most communications technologies effectively. But to work effectively, you do need to be familiar with the basic features and functions of that technology. Okay, many company, the fusion technologies. Have you heard of the fusion technology? The fusion technology is like this thing. The mobile phone, this can be called as the fusion technologies, where it integrates a lot of technologies in a small device. But with a smartphone, there's so many functions. How many functions you actually use every day? A lot of functions there, a dozen of obscure features that rarely need use. You don't need to master for that features. So overuse or misuse of the communications technologies can lead to information overload. Okay? So here we need to use the tool effectively. Yeah? What really need for you and your for company, you only use that feature. So as the okay, moving is to the guardian against information overload. In order to reduce the overload equal to many informations at the same time. So at the senders, the overload informations can come from both sides, sender and receiver. So at the senders, you make sure that every message you send is meaningful and important to your recipient. Don't just send, everything's dumb, everything's there to them and let them work, let them process it. So in that case, they will get the information's overload. As the recipient, what should you do? You should take steps to control numbers and types of message that you receive. And use the filtering, use the filtering features of your communication system to isolate or to put high priority message that deserve your attention. So everything needs to be prioritized, even the received message, receive information. So remember that to minimize information's overload, make sure the message you send are meaningful and important to the receiver, the reader. And how, no matter that how much technology is involved, the communications will always be about people's connecting with the people. Right? Because we want to connecting to the people, but due to the differences, due to the distance, due to the language and so on, so therefore we need to bridge it by using technology. But the core value is connecting people. So even the best technologies can hinder the communications if they are overused. So my suggestions is that managers should not really rely heavily on digital message. And we need to spend time, deserve time for face-to-face communication, because technologies cannot replace all such kinds of things. So that is the communications and technology. Now let me repeat again for your group assignment. You need to pick up 1 to 2 technologies in order to deepen the knowledge in that technology. And after you selecting the technologies, what you need to do is you need to search, find the evidence in the industries, in any specific company, that technologies help the companies to improve the communications, make it more efficiently. Right. So I pause here to see you have the questions. The sessions. Later on, you need to work on the group assignment. So maybe I was, finish this thing. Or you want to have 5-minute break? The whole class, do you want to have 5-minute break?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's a 5 minutes break. Yeah. Let's have 5 minutes break. Hello, hello. Welcome back. No?
Hello.
So, yeah, can you hear me? Good. Yeah, okay. A quick reminder, next week we will off. There is no class next week. Sang tuần tới là chúng ta không có buổi học lớp nhau.
Vâng ạ.
Okay. The week after, you will be with Professor Kuku. Okay? Yeah. Everything will be set up for you. Right. So we'll move to the last content today, which we call etiquette in the digital world. I think in the class with Dr. Kuku, you also be given etiquette in non-digital world, but here is in digital world. You know, now they are defining a digital citizenship. You are definitely would be one among them, right? Young generations. Yeah? The definitions of it, therefore, you know, you will more integrated yourselves into digital world. Therefore, you have to be, you know, become a digital citizen. So be polite be polite digital citizens. We call etiquette. Etiquette. Okay? Etiquette. Oh, how come it's not moving? Let's see. It's moving. Okay. So 9 components of the digital citizenships, including they will list down here. You can see from the digital asset, it means that you will have the full participations in society, full electronic participations. Yeah, correctly, it should be like that. Digital commerce, you involved in buying and selling via e-commerce. Digital communications, you use a lot of electronic or digital equipment to exchange the ideas and information. Digital literacy means that you provide learning about the digital technologies. Digital etiquette is you should behave nicely in the digital world. Or they may develop a code of conduct for use to behave in the digital world. Digital law, there is the, you know, the law developed for the electronic responsibilities. And we have the digital right and responsibility, digital health, wellness, physical, psychological well-being in digital technology as well, and digital securities too. Okay, so that is 9 components, you know, to illustrate that you are a digital citizen. Etiquette, you know. So, you know, digital technologies users must be aware of using technologies and understand how technologies use, you know, can affect others. So, you know, develop a standard of conduct. Ones, you know, have to control the behaviors of the digital technologies user. So when the communicating online or via any mobile device, a person's tone is difficult to determine. So because it's difficult you know, to identify whether you are in which mood it is, so it can cause the misunderstanding in the digital world. You know? Oh, sorry. It runs so fast. Sarcasms and jokes are not easily identifiable. Maybe you are jokes, but they think that you are not. You are serious. It would be easily leads to the conflict in the digital world. cyber bullying and can also create a negative effect. Using acronyms, using acronyms. So you should use the well international recognized acronyms. Otherwise, it may lead to misunderstanding, confusing, and can cause annoyance to the recipient. And it is a potential source of the conflict. Use emotions. Now they create a lot of icons, and especially the emotions icon. So many new emotions icons create per day. So therefore, we hardly understand all the meanings of the emotions icon. So the emotions icons, we also call it as emoticons. Emoticons. So not everyone understands this, and like myself, my daughters use it all the time, and sometimes it's hard for me to understand it. It looks funny, but we don't know exactly what does it mean. So it can cause confusing. And another important issues in etiquette, that is the cyber bullying. Form of the cyberbullying, like a rumor sent by emails or posts on the social networking sites, like embarrassing pictures, impolite video, websites are fake, profiles. A lot of people is doing it, and more like practices, more practices to illustrate the poor etiquette, etiquette, like sharing inappropriate image or content, spam, unsolicited email message, flaming or hostile resulting online interactions, impersonate others, and so on. This kinds of thing, I think you know this because you are so experiencing in the digital world. So the tip for communicating online is a tip. Digital etiquette is important when you're communicating by technologies, and it helps others feel safe and to understand what you are trying to say or express. And poor digital etiquette can be confusing, and cyberbullying can be harmful to the others. So behave yourself in the digital world. Keep the principles. Keep the following principles. First, treat others with the respect at all times. You treat the other like you want to be treated. Others treat you. Practice manners, behave well, nice manners, and common sense when using all form of digital communications. Yes, not only the common sense, but recognize common sense. One way recognize common sense. And in case you don't agree with someone's ideas, simply you don't leave the comment. Or if you would like to leave it constructively. Don't post photos of the other people's without their permission. So if you take a photos with your friends as a group, you need to get their permission, or or just covers their face. And the capital letters is depend on the countries. So that is all the contents of the unit 2. And I also developed some classwork for you. Okay, try to reflect, because this thing, it can goes to your individual assignment, reflection individual assignment. So try to do it often and identify the interesting ones to put in the individual assignment. So, wow, how polite you are in digital work. This is like reflections. Identify your strengths and weaknesses. Compare and use the benchmarking that I introduced to you in the previous slides to compare yourself. And which communications technologies you use in your communications. Can you put in the orders in terms of frequency using it? And identify the 3 technologies that you think it works well for you, that you think is most effective for you. And would you like to share this? Okay. I think that we will not have enough time for the class activity, this class activities. So I recommend that you will, go through it and try to list down the answers for this class work. And we will, get back in 3 weeks' time to discuss it. Yeah. And now I would like you as a group discuss and come up with the questions for your group assignment. For your group assignments, you discuss to come up with the questions. As the soonest, I recommend that you should be soon to select technologies for your group assignment and start to conduct a research on that topic. Because that group assignments will be due in week 6. And now we are week 2. So it means that in 5 weeks time, we need to present it. Chúng ta có câu hỏi gì không nào?
Không ạ.
Thì bài tập nhóm không có hả? Chưa bắt đầu thì chưa có đúng không? Bây giờ mà các bạn phải bắt đầu đi nhé. Tất cả các nhóm của chúng ta phải bắt đầu đi. Chúng ta tranh thủ tuần sau của chúng ta là chúng ta nghỉ môn này. Thì các nhóm ngày hôm nay ấy, của chúng ta về, chúng ta có thể là bắt đầu trao đổi, tìm thời gian để chúng ta bắt đầu làm việc với nhau đi nhé. Tại vì chỉ khi mà bạn bắt đầu vào làm bài thì lúc đấy mới có câu hỏi, đúng không? Còn nếu như mà chúng ta chưa bắt tay vào làm thì đúng là chúng ta cũng chưa có gì để hỏi cả. Thế. So, what would you like to do now? Bạn muốn gì bây giờ? We finish here?
Yes.
If you honest, about 10 minutes
No.
for your group discussions, so internal group discussions, bonus 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so we end the class here and start to work on the group assignment. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to write me. Yeah, write me, text me, write me, email me. Okay, and I will see you in 3 weeks time.